I don't think I ever stopped collecting ideas for albums in general. So I think there's a couple of songs which I wrote or I partially written around the time I was working on the Pursuit album that I hadn't finished off and that I liked the ideas for, but I never really fully developed. But I guess the bulk of the songwriting happened before and after my daughter was born. So it was very interesting because I had so much less time than I normally had. Two really important things kind of were significant then. I had my own space to record in and work out ideas in, which is where we're now. So for the first time, I had all my instruments set up and I could work on anything at any time. But on the flip side of that, I had so much less time. So I had to kind of do things in little bursts. But at the same time, I had this, really kind of luxurious space to work in. So I would say snatches of time, half an hour here, 1 hour there, 20 minutes here. I started coming up with the ideas. So over the last year and a half, really.
It's just the same things that we don't know. It's just the same things.
Significant things have happened in my personal life, getting married, having a kid, another one coming. I think it has afforded me the ability to think a lot less about what everything means and what everything means in the grand scheme of my career. So I've done things that possibly previously I would have stopped getting out the starting gate because I thought, it doesn't sound enough like me, or it's not enough like what I've done before. So there's been a lot less thinking while I've been making this album. So as a result, there are a few things on here that you'll certainly recognise as me, but I'm pushing a lot farther. I'm not doing things for the sake of because I've done it before and I want to make sure that there's a through line. I've just kind of balls to the wall, kind of gone for it really. And I think the other major kind of move forward is that this album is almost purely based around my songwriting. And that really means my songwriting. That doesn't mean kind of going out and doing a ton of co-writes with kind of proven songwriters. It means I've been kind of in this room, kind of bashing my head against the wall, drinking 1,000 cups of coffee and trying to finish these songs by myself. So, 95% of these songs are original ones. So that's obviously quite a big change. Sonically, I've been working with different producers. So there's not one producer working on the album. There's lots of different producers. And they have all worked with the material I brought out of this studio. So a lot of the songs, the very basis of it, whether it be the vocal or the piano take or the beat or the guitar take, I took to the studio from here, and I took to another studio, and then had different producers, Jim Abbis, Dan the Automator, Duncan Mills, and Ben Lambden kind of helped me flesh everything out. So a lot more of it has started kind of right here, kind of as my thing, and moved forward. As a result of it being more my songwriting, I think it's less kind of obviously a jazz record and possibly more of a songs record.
Will you help me paint a smile on this sad, sad world?
As I started this record, I didn't think I would necessarily I would have an overarching concept. My only idea was to come into this room and play, childlike play, not playing instruments, just like playing, and because that's what I used to do when I started playing music, was just play for the fun of it. So I just wanted to make sure I was kind of capturing that feeling. As I started to write the songs, I just wrote them and didn't think much about it. But now as I kind of look back, I realised that the whole album is about the crossover and whether you are making the crossover or you're not. And I mean crossover in the sense of becoming a real adult. Part of me has one foot in a world that is very much still a kind of teenager, and the other foot is firmly in the adult camp where I'm responsible for another human life, and I'm sharing my life with someone. I mean, it doesn't get kind of more grown up than that, really. And so, the half the songs are about kind of leaving behind, like, partying a lot, and the other kind of half are about, whether you can hack being a grown-up, really. And I think that's why I've ended up calling the album Momentum. There's a song called Momentum on the album, but I think it is, as you kind of become this adult, you realise that you can't just rely on that youthful momentum anymore. You have to create your own energy and thought processes to really kind of cope with it all. So I think if that is an overarching theme and concept, that definitely seems what it is to me.
I'm on the edge of something, so I just...
I've definitely relied a lot more on myself on this record in terms of, you know, production and song choice, and I have played a lot of the instruments on it. I mean, on tunes like Everything You Didn't Do, I pretty much played everything apart from the drums, but that's not in a kind of Prince like I want to, you know, be in control of everything. It's just sometimes how it worked out. Certain songs have been born out of the way I can play certain instruments. You know, I don't play the drums very well, but I can play certain beats, and I wrote the song Everything You Didn't Do off one of the 4 drum beats I could play, and I don't think the song would have sounded quite the same way had I not kind of written it with me playing the drums. But I'm kind of loath to really kind of go into that. I mean, I played all the guitar, I played all the pianos, and, you know, obviously sang the thing, but my band, particularly my bass player and drummer, Brad and Chris, have been completely instrumental in putting this album together with me. You know, we did all the studio sessions together, and they've been a really important part of the creative process, and their hunger to learn about studio and production and recording coupled with mine has been actually one of the reasons why I think production-wise this album has gone further than anything I've done before.
Thought I'd do it anyway, 'cause there's nothing left for us.
So I worked with the producer Jim Abbas on this album. Jim's worked with loads of incredible people. He's done stuff with Mowax back in the day. He has worked with Adele, the Arctic Monkeys, lots of, you know, great kind of rock records, actually. Really great sounding, very live sounding rock records. And we had met a couple of times before, and we met again, and he really liked the songs I was working on, and I just thought he'd be fun to work with, and I was absolutely right. He brought real... He helped me really kind of get the concepts right for each song and put them in the world that they needed to be in. And he also made sure that nothing I did sounded too safe. And it's easy sometimes for me to sound safe. It's kind of a natural home for me. So he helped me not do that. I worked with Duncan Mills on a few tracks as well. He worked on a great record by a band called The Crocodiles that I really like. Again, more from a kind of rock world, but very, very musical guy. He helped my stuff sound really big. He helped everything sound enormous, which is great to work with him. I worked with Dan the Automator again, who I worked with before on the album Catching Tales, and he really helped me with drums and rhythm and giving that kind of sense of something that it sounds very timeless but also really modern at the same time. And I also worked with a great London-based producer called Ben Lambden, who's also known as Nostalgia 77, to help me with the jazzier side of things, but to produce them in a way that I've never done that kind of stuff before.
Can you feel, can you feel, can you feel that? Can you feel, can you feel?
This is the first album where I've really kind of stayed put. I've, 99% of the tunes started live in this room. And, you know, the rest of them were recorded. Everything was recorded in and around London, really. For obvious reasons, I wanted to stay closer to home for this record. And I don't know what that means, whether that's had an effect on the record, but it kind of meant that I was sleeping in my own bed every night, and it was a good feeling, actually.
Everything you did